Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we crank the 3D slider up to the headache setting. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going so good.
Oh, so good, man. Here's the thing. It's a little bit windy.
It is.
It makes it cold.
Also true.
I don't have follow-up statements for this. Did you see that moon earlier this week?
Great moon.
Great moon.
Solid moon.
Man, it sure did kind of disappear for a little bit and turn red. Craziness in the sky.
Yeah.
Speaking of craziness in the sky, my copy of Sonic Forces. You know you want to borrow it. You can play it on a plane. That's the in the sky part. The craziness is the game is strange. You can borrow my copy of Sonic Forces. All you need to do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
At gmail.com
with a little bit of information.
Your mailing address.
For example, there really doesn't need to be any other information, just your mailing address. And when I send it to you, you play it for as long as you want. You send it back, and that's it.
I really admire the effort you just put in to make your segue into that make sense.
Thank you. Look, some people will tell you that segues make themselves. The best segues you don't even see. But I think for a segue to really work, it's got to be clumsy, and first of all, someone has got to point it out after it happens. Otherwise, what was the point of even making the segue?
Well, that's why I'm the co-host.
Well,
is to point it out.
I
That's
think
my job.
I think
I'm the point man.
we co-host this show together, right?
Yeah.
You're not Andy Richter,
No.
and I'm not Conan O'Brien. And we've been Nintendo Cartridge Society.
Good night, folks.
All right. But instead of good night, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite Nintendo platforms. Should we just get into it?
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Look, we're going to play some music, which means we can start actually talking about it. The Nintendo 3DS is what we're talking about today.
So I wanted to talk about this because I feel like when the Switch came out,
Mm-hmm.
I was guilty of this too. I was like, the 3DS, who needs it?
Right.
The garbage bin of history.
Right. The 3DS is now like an old T-shirt, and you know, like when like the neck is worn out, and you're like, I know I liked that thing once upon a time.
Yeah, and it's not stressed in a vintage way.
No, it's in like it's a busted shirt kind of way. You can't wear it. Someone will make fun of you.
So that's how I was treating the Nintendo 3DS, and that is really selling this system short.
I agree. Well, and I mentioned this at some point in the last couple weeks, maybe just during our conversation about Bowser's Inside Story, that Nintendo has this big legacy of dual screen experiences now with the DS, the 3DS, and the Wii U. That if the Switch is the true, standard bearer for the future of Nintendo, and it probably is, we'll just be left behind. That thing only has one screen. The screen that we like. We can take it with us wherever we want. We can throw it up on our TV, but it's still just one screen.
And I think like the newness of the Switch is also really exciting.
Yeah.
Because the 3DS at this point has been with us for almost 8 years.
Yeah, it'll be 8 years in February.
And so it's like not new anymore. There's nothing really exciting about it. And for a lot of people, it's games that you maybe played 7 years ago, which is an eternity ago.
Yeah, yes, it's a very long time. Because it even straddles like the line of like the previous generation, right? It's like a contemporary of late Wii. Like it predates the Wii U. So like in Nintendo parlance, it's way back there. And I think there's also just something like the transition from the Wii to the Wii U that like the branding gets a little bit muddy in our brains, so like we don't really always remember what was a DS game and what was a 3DS game.
Especially since the Nintendo DS was such like a revelation and an
Yes.
unexpected surprise, that when the Nintendo 3DS didn't strike lightning again right out of the gate, I don't know, it's always just had, I feel like, the reputation as the lesser system, and I think that's true in sheer volume of the game library, but especially with how affordable a 3DS is now and not everyone can buy a Switch, like if you can get a 3DS,
Yeah,
you
you've
have
got access to a ton
like a
of
lifetime
games.
of games.
Yeah, I mean almost literally a lifetime of games, because not only are there a lot of good games on here, there are a lot of games that you can pour hundreds of hours into. Animal Crossing, any of the Pokemon games, any of the Fire Emblem games, meaty experiences.
And that's not even counting that the 3DS can play any Nintendo DS game out
Yeah.
of the box. Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of great Nintendo DS games that didn't also get ported to the 3DS.
Right.
Like Chrono Trigger, for example. I
Yeah.
still think Chrono Trigger DS is the definitive way to play that game.
Yeah, and it's isn't there some like stretching or something that happens on one of the screens when you play DS games on 3DS?
Yeah, you can. There is like, yes, that is true. It like the 3DS's bottom screen is larger than the DS's,
right.
And so it stretches it. But you can.
There's a pixel perfect mode.
There is a pixel perfect mode.
But even that. So like maybe the ideal way to play DS games is on the DS, but the 3DS will still do it, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so basically we wanted to sing the praises of a system that I think has been overshadowed by the resurgence of Nintendo and the success of the Switch.
Absolutely. So we made little lists. Mark said, "Hey, let's make lists of 5 games each." And I sort of followed those instructions.
It was a good starting point.
Yeah.
My list is
your list is enormous. Okay,
large.
great.
But what I did for this is I went to the Wikipedia page that just listed all of the Nintendo 3DS games. There's over 1,000.
Yeah.
There, and again, this library goes back to 2011. There were so many games that came out for the system that I completely forgot about that are completely awesome,
right?
Amazing experiences,
right? Must plays or whatever
are just like so, like kind of old hat to us. But if you were getting into 3DS now, or you never really got into 3DS's library, there's so much here.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear. Give me something, Mark.
Okay, so here's one of my first picks is Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Animal Crossing New Leaf.
We've talked about Animal Crossing. Yeah, give it up. Animal Crossing New Leaf. For me, I know the Animal Crossing series did not start on handhelds, but to me, the definitive version of Animal Crossing thus far is New Leaf.
Yeah.
And before that, it was Wild World. It was the DS version. And I'm really interested to find out what Animal Crossing 2019 looks like.
On the Switch, yeah.
But City Folk on Wii was a huge disappointment. And New Leaf is... I feel about New Leaf like I feel about Smash Brothers Ultimate or Mario Kart 8, where it's like, oh yeah, this is the definitive, almost perfect form of what an Animal Crossing game as we know it can be.
Right, this is what it always should have been. There was that also. What was the name of the update to
Welcome Amiibo?
Yeah,
something like that,
or just Welcome. Yeah, maybe it is Welcome Amiibo. But I mean, like, it was a game that already was like a bottomless well of content that they were like, here's more.
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. This entire episode is just gonna be me singing praises of like really great games.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, it is amazing how long you can have that conversation just about amazing 3DS games, because I think we're gonna hit. We both have like kind of fat lists. And I don't think we're gonna have really that much overlap. And I think I was avoiding some things that I'm like, well, obviously this is so we'll see if we need to like loop back around and be like, oh yeah, also here's a million other great experiences on this thing. Can I do one?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to start with a game that I mention almost every time that we're talking about like good games that we're not freaking out enough about. Pocket Card Jockey. This is a game where you race horses, and the game mechanic by which you race these horses is you play solitaire. And it is a near perfect video game. It'll cost you $7, and it is amazing. The art is great. The like story mode is, like you can buy items for your horses. So
What
like,
is the art style?
it's just like it's just like cartoony. It looks like a WarioWare game
Oh,
almost.
okay.
Yeah, and it's just like it has, solitaire is such like a simple concept, but like the game throws like weird little, and none of them are like hard obstacles to overcome, but it's just like, like if you tap on these cards too many times, they like burn up and go away. And it's like, oh, okay, well that's one little obstacle, and like you're trying to do all of them under like little time restraints, and like it's just one of those games that like will take all of your attention, and you'll look up and be like, whoa, 3 hours have passed.
Is it Game Freak that developed
Yeah,
that one?
it's a Game Freak game. So it is of good stock, and just, I mean, there's, as far as I know, no end to the game. Like you can just keep getting new horses and getting new people to sponsor your horses, and just keep racing them by playing solitaire. It's amazing. I love Pocket Card Jockey.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that and talk about another game from like name brand developer that's just kind of a weird one-off for the 3DS. In this case, it's a 3-off.
Oh, I
I'm
know
talking
exactly.
about
It's
Box Boy,
Boy!
developed by HAL Laboratories.
Uh-huh.
Box Boy. There are 3 games in it. The most recent one is Bye Bye Box Boy. That's one I picked up.
Mm-hmm.
They're little puzzle games where you're a cute little cube and
A box. QB.
and you can extend yourself by like a certain number of boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're figuring out how to get out of stages or like little like platforming
Yeah.
levels based on
Mm-hmm.
how you can configure yourself with those boxes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you're making a shape and then like throwing that shape somewhere so you can like get over some spikes, and sometimes you are like making yourself a longer piece so that like you stick into the wall somewhere. And it's got like the like perfect threshold. Like all of the puzzles are just perfectly designed. Where like I would say at least half of the puzzles, when I start them, I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And then I'm like staring at it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and think, I'm never going to solve this. And then you do.
It's also really cute, like simple but cute graphically.
Uh-huh.
They're like $5 each. It's a joy.
And there are 5 of them. Like there are a lot of these games. Go play them. They're very, very good. All right, my next pick is my first cheat of the night. It's a plug for the 3D classics, specifically as led by. Here are 3 good examples of the 3D classics on this thing: Kid Icarus, Kirby's Adventure, and Excite Bike.
Do you want to explain what the 3D classics are? Because I feel like that's something that was early in the Nintendo 3DS's life, but Nintendo kind of stopped making these games.
Yeah, so it is largely re-releases of NES games that have been like done up in 3D graphics, and then like everything about them is enhanced in some way.
Not 3D graphics meaning like polygons. 3D graphics is in like they have like parallax.
Yeah,
right?
the stereoscopic 3D. So I mean, this is especially nice if you're using a new 3DS that is tracking your head position, and you can actually play with the 3D on, so you're not like sitting in a neck brace and keeping your head perfectly still as you play them.
Like Virtual Boy.
That's right, like the Virtual Boy. But Kid Icarus 3D, first of all, it takes all of so the backgrounds in the original Kid Icarus are just a black background, which is fine for whatever, but like is such a limitation to the game, and takes away one like core component of storytelling, which is like actually selling you on the location. When you're playing the 3D classics version of the first level of Kid Icarus, you can tell that you're like ascending up a mountain, and like
cool.
into the heavens, which is never the impression that you get actually playing this game on the NES. And just having this like little bit of distinction between like the layers of like you're in the foreground and that stuff's in the background, it feels like a fun. We were talking about 2D HD last or on Tuesday, was part of the like Octopath Traveler style, and that actually comes out a little bit in the 3D classics, and specifically Kid Icarus. The other thing that Kid Icarus 3D classics does is that it fixes Pit's jump, so you can keep jamming on the jump button to like make him float down. And it just makes the game playable. It gives you just a little bit more agency over what the character can do, which turns out is the difference between the game being impossible and being possible.
And those are available in the eShop.
Those are all available in the eShop. There's no like bundle for them yet. And when I say yet, I mean there's no bundle for them. But other games that are the ports of them are really good, and like additive to have them in 3D. Kirby's Adventure and Excite Bike. Excite Bike, it zooms you way out, so like the view of the track that you get is just huge. And the game already has like some sort of pretend depth to it, and so actually having 3D in there actually feels pretty cool. And then there's a bunch of other 3D classics, and I can't vouch for any of these as I haven't played them, but Urban Champion, Twin Bee, Sonic 2, and a Sega Classics collection. That's if I do have the Sonic 2, and that's fun as well. But yeah, it's a for all of the good games that are on 3DS, there are so many ways to play games from other platforms on this thing, and I think that these NES games are all served really well by being presented in 3D, with just like some touch-ups to backgrounds and presentation and stuff.
So jumping from the retro games, a game that I really wanted to call out, but again, kind of forget happened, is Super Smash Brothers for 3DS.
Yeah.
What a marvel this game is.
Yeah, I don't have it on my list. I did play so much of this game. I do feel like it is effectively replaced now by Ultimate. But yeah, I mean, if you do not have access to a Switch and you do have access to a 3DS, man, Smash for 3DS really gets the job done.
It works remarkably well. It feels like a full Super Smash Brothers game. Like, it doesn't feel like there are compromises. Again, I didn't have a Wii U, and so that was the way that I have experienced Smash 4 the most, and I feel like I got a lot of it.
Yeah, I did have a Wii U, and I put way more hours into the 3DS version. And I don't really know what that is. Partially because it's fun to play a fighting game when you're traveling, or like when you're on a plane and you're like, how am I going to grind away some hours? Like, oh, I'm going to do it by playing an amazing fully featured party game.
Yeah, I remember being in jury duty and the Wi-Fi in the courthouse was broken, but I had my 3DS and I just played Smash all day. It was amazing.
Plus, you're going to be able to play way more Smash on 3DS on one battery charge than you are on of Smash Ultimate on your Switch. One of those things is going to make it a full flight across the country. The other one is not. Man, yeah, what a good game. And there's just so much to like dig into there if you really want to like go for it and like try to do everything. Not all the modes are slam dunks, but like, I don't know, I put a ton of time into that is it called Smash Run? I put a ton of time into that, even though it's not that good. It's just a lot of fun to play. All right, next game on my list is Super Mario 3D World. The sort
3D
of
Land?
Yes, you're correct. The predecessor to 3D World. I have it written down as World. I'm gonna change that. Hold on. I'm just gonna
let the record show.
I'm just changing this to 3D.
I'm confirming it as the co-host. I confirm that is what happened.
So this invented a genre of Mario game, and we don't talk about that enough. Super Mario 3D World is where like the formula is perfected, but Super Mario 3D Land does such a great job of giving you this like half 3D. I mean, it is all 3D, but like that really course-based 3D, but not Galaxy style game. It's great. It's long. You play through it basically twice. Once is Mario, once is Luigi. There's just so much content to it, and it's super fun.
Ocarina of Time 3D. Next on my list.
Yes,
The definitive way, as far as I'm concerned, the definitive way to play this game.
totally.
It's so good. I'm really excited for Majora's Mask being part of the Nintendo Selects program because I haven't played it yet. And after playing Ocarina of Time 3D, which we did last year when we were ranking the Ocarina of Time dungeons, to see how well it was remastered.
Oh, so many little quality of life fixes. So much presentationally better.
I'm really excited to play Majora's Mask that way.
Yeah. So actually, it's one of my bonus items. Just that this is where you go to play Zelda games. You can play The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, and Hyrule Warriors, all on this system.
That's amazing.
That's like a dozen Zelda games. There is not another Nintendo system on which you can play this many Zelda games.
Especially, so Link Between Worlds is on my list as just an really incredible,
great game,
throwback Zelda.
Yeah,
and Hyrule Warriors I haven't played, but how remarkable is it that you can play Hyrule Warriors on a 3DS?
It's pretty crazy. I think is it new 3DS exclusive?
That's a good question.
Or maybe it just really chugs on.
I'm sure it chugs on a regular 3DS.
It's gotta.
But that's amazing.
Yes.
That's a Wii U game and a Switch game. The Switch game is more important to the 3DS version because they kept adding content to the 3DS version after they had abandoned the Wii U version.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to play a bunch of Zelda games, it doesn't have the newest Zelda games. Weirdly, you got to go to the Wii U to get all of those. The Wii U is also a good little library of Zelda games. That's where you can play Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild.
But a Wii U's not $80.
No, exactly. In fact, Wii U's are currently going up in price. But yeah, it's the Ocarina of Time is totally this is the place to play it, and the fact that you can have all these other Zelda games on this same machine is remarkable.
Yeah, what a bummer that we're not going to, at least for the foreseeable future, not going to have a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D available on the Switch.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, and one of the things that we see in Ocarina of Time 3D that makes it so nice is, man, that second screen inventory system. It's just so handy to not have to pull up a menu, just to glance down and go, oh, okay, I want this now.
Yeah, even if you did port the game to the Switch, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, it would lose some of that magic. And the game also looks and plays well in 3D. It's some of these games that we're going to talk about don't have 3D functionality or have limited 3D functionality, like Pokemon. But that one does and looks great. The next item on my list here is WarioWare Gold, because that game is also a nonstop font of just 8-second long game experiences that you can just make it come at you over and over and over again.
It's also just a really good example of, if you the WarioWare games that you maybe remember the most fondly, like the Game Boy Advance versions and maybe even the DS versions. This takes all of those and puts them into a single game, because unless you have your DS or your Advance, you're not gonna be able to play these WarioWare micro games anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, the WarioWare games are always good about taking what's unique about a platform and making you interface with it that way. So the Wii version, it's all Wii remote based stuff, and the Game Boy Advance version had the accelerometer in it, so it was all about tilting. And this game just it translates all of that to the 3DS, which does have an enormous number of ways that you can interact with it. You can tilt it, you can draw on it, you can push the buttons. You can blow on it. There are blow games in this thing where you blow on the speaker. So yeah, it's just it does such a good job of showing off what the 3DS can do and making that like an extension of what all these other Nintendo consoles have been able to do.
One thing that, look, I love my Switch. One thing I didn't realize I was missing until it was taken away
Blowing on it?
are are Mii's being featured prominently
Uh-huh.
in Street Pass
Yeah.
for the Nintendo 3DS was such a cool feature. So for those of you that don't know, Street Pass was basically if you put your 3DS in sleep, so you just like close the clamshell but didn't power it down. If as you were walking around like at the airport or on the train or something, if somebody else had their 3DS, then the like NFC signals would interface.
Right.
And
They would share information with each other.
and their Mii would show up on your system and your Mii would show up on their system in like the Street Pass or whatever. I can't remember what it was called, like
Yeah, like the yeah, I don't
Mii
remember
Plaza,
yeah,
maybe
is that right?
something
Mii
like
Plaza might be
that.
a thing.
But anyways, and they use this in the 3DS. Nintendo made some absolutely bonkers, insane games
Yes.
that featured Mii's, like Tamagotchi Life,
Mm-hmm.
which if you've never looked up this game, it's, I guess you could say it's kind of like Animal Crossing, but with Mii's, but that's selling it way short. This game is
It's way crazier than that.
absolutely bonkers. I encourage you to look up a video on YouTube by Chris Scullion, also known as Tired Old Hack. He used to work for the official Nintendo magazine in the UK. And he, when this game was being released, he made a video where it's Morgan Freeman Mii being backed up by a bunch of other celebrity Mii's in like a hot air balloon performing a musical number that Chris wrote the lyrics to, because you could do that in Tamagotchi Life.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bonkers and so insane, but like so much fun. And I kind of miss that about Mii's. I kind of miss like the making one that looks like you and you're like, oh my gosh, it does actually look like me.
Yeah, I mean that is because they are still on your Switch, right? Like the Switch
Yes.
has a Mii Maker, but like you got to kind of dig for it, and it's not something that Nintendo's really pushing anymore. Which I agree is a little bit of a bummer. Like having those avatars is nice, and I do miss them. They're one of my favorite things with Mii's and on 3DS. When I was really into Smash on the 3DS, I made characters for all of because you could make your own, Mii characters. I made characters for each of Andy Daly's characters from the Andy Daly podcast pilot project. So I made one Mii that's just Andy Daly, right? And then I made Chip Gardner and Dalton Wilcox and all of these characters, Patty McMahon. And so, they're all in my version of Smash for 3DS, which is cool. But then also, maybe like a year ago or whenever it came out, I was playing Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers. And all of those, not all of those characters, but a lot of those characters are Mii characters that they turn into animals and then just keep the names that you gave the Mii's. So at one point, I approach a mouse who's sitting at the bar, and he's wearing glasses and has blonde hair, and he says, "Hi, I'm Andy Daly." That's a little bit of magic.
Yeah, it's just completely bonkers, and some of that like fun is apparent in the Nintendo 3DS that Nintendo has moved away from in the new generation.
Yeah, trying to be cool. This is my last official entry on here, but I've got one more bonus one. This is just kind of a shout out to all of the turn-based strategy games that are on the 3DS, but specifically Codename Steam, which is developed by Intelligent Systems, the company that does Fire Emblem, and it is God, I don't even really know how to describe it. It's like an over-the-shoulder XCOM style turn-based strategy game where you play steampunk versions of alternate history characters / classic literature characters. You're gonna be like I'm drawing blanks. You're gonna be John Henry and the lion from the Wizard of Oz, and you're doing these turn-based tactical missions against aliens, and you're like trying to save, the United States. It's a crazy game, and the strategy is so good and so tight, and it's just fun to play. And like one of the big criticisms of the game right when it came out was that the enemy turns took forever, but you can speed them up now. They patched it in later, so you can play the enemy turns back at like double speed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But in a broader sense, there are a ton of turn-based strategy games on this thing. They're mostly Fire Emblem games.
But the Nintendo 3DS is really where Fire Emblem became a Nintendo A-tier franchise.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Awakening completely changed the game for Fire Emblem.
Absolutely. And if that game like does it for you, then Fates, there are 3 versions of Fire Emblem Fates. So like you can just stop that. You can say, oh, just those 2 Fire Emblem games. There's so much there. I don't even need to. What? There's another one? And then you play Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, and you've got like another amazing and like different enough experience that it won't feel like you're treading the same territory over and over again.
And then you have Fire Emblem Warriors.
And then you have Fire Emblem
which
Warriors.
is also playable on maybe just new 3DS.
Maybe just new 3DS.
But that's another game that is a Switch experience.
Yes.
That, if you don't own a Switch, is available to you on the 3DS.
Totally.
Fully featured. Why don't you go ahead and do your bonus one? Because I don't have specific games anymore that like I've played. I just want to talk about like general.
Sure. Well, my next one is another concept. So why don't you give me one of your concepts?
Well, on the heels of Fire Emblem Heroes, I think something that's really remarkable about the 3DS is how many of those like quote unquote like full blown console experiences are available on the 3DS, like Super Mario Maker's on there now. SteamWorld Dig 2 was released on Switch, totally available on the 3DS. Shovel Knight, that's where I experienced 3DS or Shovel Knight for the first time, was on the 3DS. Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, a Wii U game that was recently re-released on Switch, also available on 3DS. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, Ultimate NES Remix, Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Resident Evil Revelations got its start on the 3DS.
Yoshi's Woolly World, Kirby's Epic Yarn, a Wii game, but coming out shortly.
Same with Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D.
Yeah, which is the best way to play that game because it doesn't have the like shake controls of the Wii version.
So it's just like there are so many amazing like console-sized experiences that are possible on the 3DS.
Yeah, and that's from such a wide library. We already mentioned the Zelda Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, but also the Star Fox 64 is another one. Like you can go back to like the entirety of, I guess there aren't any GameCube games now that I'm thinking about it, but Nintendo 64, Wii U, and Switch, 4 different console generations of like 3D fully fledged experiences are represented on this system, and in like a lot of cases definitive ways. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We're talking about it and I'm just like consistently blown away with how good the 3DS library is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess I'll just keep this little train going here. This is also a place where you can play a ton of Super Nintendo games. Most of them are first party, but Capcom also brings it. There are like different versions of Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter Alpha. I think maybe Street Fighter Alpha 2. All 3 Final Fight games, 2 Breath of Fire games, Super Mario World, Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Earthbound, and a bunch of other stuff from Nintendo's like Super Nintendo library are available on the Virtual Console on this thing. Only on the new 3DS, but they're there, and it's like there was a long time, especially before the NES Classic came out, where it's just like, or the SNES Classic came out, where it's just like, yeah, this is where I can play Super Nintendo games. I can play them on the go. I can't, for all the great games I have on my 3DS, the one I probably play most frequently is Super Mario World. it's a great game, and like maybe we don't need to rehash that it's a great game, but like you can play it on your 3DS. It's crazy.
And all of these games that we're talking about are just like a drop in the bucket
Yes.
of there are so many games that I know by reputation that I
Yes.
haven't played myself. Like if you are a JRPG fan, the 3DS
Lousy.
is yeah. Like there are so many Etrian Odyssey games on this platform. I've never played an Etrian Odyssey,
No.
but they're supposed to be great.
Right. Well, and there's that Persona Q2 is also out there. The Bravely games, we haven't even talked about those because neither of us have played them. But Bravely Default and Bravely Second, those are both 3DS games.
The Monster Hunter games before Monster Hunter World, these were like the most recent, maybe like best versions. Remember when Square Enix did the Final Fantasy Rhythm game? Like Theater Rhythm or whatever. Theatrhythm Final Fantasy. Mario Kart 7 we didn't even talk about.
Right.
Luigi's Mansion, Dark of the Moon.
Right.
Remember when Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D was a 3DS game?
Yeah, why not? You can play Metal Gear Solid 3, arguably one of like the good one. You can play on your 3DS.
Metroid Samus Returns.
Oh man. Well, I forgot. Mark, I straight forgot about that game. That's an excellent game.
2 really good Dragon Quest games. 1 I bought and never actually got to a battle, Dragon Quest 7, and Dragon Quest 8, which I can vouch for even though I didn't play it on the 3DS. It's just like there is so much to the Nintendo 3DS's library, and without even getting into the virtual console stuff, it's such a good platform and basically indestructible.
Well, yeah, and that's a beautiful thing about it. I like that we've been talking about the 3DS's library and how great it is for a little over half an hour, and we haven't used the P word yet. There are like, I don't know, a dozen Pokemon games on this thing.
Oh yeah,
and like they're good. You know, if you want to play the newest in Pokemon games, if you want to play Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, they're there. If you want to play Red and Blue and Yellow, they're there. Like there's so much Pokemon on this thing that you could have one of these systems that's just your designated Pokemon system, and that would be fine. You would have too much to play.
Yeah, like you were saying with Zelda, there's from like the beginning of Zelda to the most to like really recent Zelda. That's how it is with Pokemon as well.
Yeah. It's insanity. Do you have other points on there?
No,
we've blown through my list.
That's pretty much it.
I didn't mention Kid Icarus Uprising because it's a pain to play. I sure wish that they would like patch in some like dual stick controls or like let you use the thumb nub to control stuff. But the way it is right now, it's kind of impossible to actually control.
But if that's the one negative thing ish we have to say about the Nintendo 3DS,
yeah, is that a game that I still do like isn't perfect? Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. And I mean, there are 7 out of 10 experiences in here, like all over the place. You could play a bunch of good games forever. I mentioned quickly Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers. It's a game I played for like a weekend, but there's a ton to it. Like alternately a racing game and like a sort of tower defense game, and then sometimes just like a straight up brawling kind of game, and with like role playing elements to it. There's just so many weird experiences.
Yeah, we did see Nintendo get weird. Like, remember Steel Divers?
Yeah, sure.
Like that.
It's like a submarine.
Like a submarine, like 3D game. Shigeru Miyamoto worked on that, I think.
Why not? Got to work on something. It's an absurdly big library, and one of the like nice little features of it of the 3DS is that these games, the baseline for these games is so much less expensive, $40 versus $60, and because they're Nintendo games, they don't really come down in price, but a lot of the games are getting the select treatment, and $20 for any of these like really AAA Nintendo quality titles is great. All right, Mark, we have done it. We have celebrated the 3DS. Let's close out this topic. But did we forget something? I don't know. Probably.
I'm sure we did. Again, the Nintendo 3DS library is vast, and
Mhm.
you and I have specific interests.
Yes, that's right. Again, it took us over half an hour to even mention Pokemon. Sometimes I think we're bad Pokemon fans. I'm not mad about it or upset about it, but sometimes I think we're bad. But if you would like to write in with your experiences, what are you actually loving about your 3DS? We didn't mention the remakes of the Mario and Luigi games. Two of them.
Yeah.
And they're both good. Anyway, if you would write into us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com
and just let us know what it is that you're loving about your 3DS. Street Fighter 4 was on there. Is that crazy? That's crazy.
We didn't even mention a new Super Mario Brothers game.
Yeah. One that neither of us have played. But
that's probably why we didn't mention it.
That's a good point. Anyway, please write in and let us know what your favorite experiences were on that thing. Or if maybe we were rating something too highly and you think that we're wrong. You can email us, but I will ask you to hold a civil tone. Thank you. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. All of that helps us out tremendously. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page. That's just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers, almost forgetting about Pokemon. Thanks for listening.
Campfire.